Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Deepika Mehto, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Both the houses of Indian Parliament will start debating the Union Budget 2024 from today. India's leading industry associations hail the budget, say it is inclusive with a strong thrust on quality, job creation and skilling. US presidential election set for a high-decibel aggressive campaign as Vice President Kamala Harris targets Donald Trump at a campaign rally, compares her background as a former prosecutor to his record as a convicted felon. US Secret Service Chief Kimberly Shekels resigns as heads begin to roll for security slip at Donald Trump's rally on 13th of July. Ronald Rao appointed as acting director of the agency. And death toll from two landslides in southern Ethiopia jumps to 229, could rise further as the search for survivors and casualties continue into the third day. So those were the top headlines of the hour, and to begin with all the updates from budget. The Indian Parliament is all set to begin discussions on the Union Budget, which has been presented on Tuesday. The lower house of the Parliament expected to have separate debates covering ministries of railways, education, health, MSME and food processing. Meanwhile, the upper house of the Parliament is all set to hold discussions on the appropriation and finance bills. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her 7th consecutive budget on Tuesday for the fiscal year 2024-25. The budget aimed at laying out the roadmap for Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. The budget also focused on provisioning for the agricultural sector, the introduction of schemes related to employment, loan schemes, announcements for financial support to the MSME sector, infrastructural development and fiscal deficit projections. Now, after India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented Union Budget 2024-25, top business honchos and market experts lauded Centre's economic outlook.
This budget has had a pretty much the single point agenda to help create jobs. And for job creation, whatever is required, the budget has done it on the government side, but thinking out of box, they have tried to also incorporate the private sector, including the top 500 companies which have to create 1 crore jobs using their CSR money, and also providing provident fund related incentives as well as the first salary to be reimbursed by the government. And many such sort of incentives have been given to the private sector by the government to create further jobs. So for me, I would call it a job creation budget. But overall, the government has also focused on keeping the infrastructure focus also intact, so that 11.1 lakh crore, which was announced in the interim budget, has been kept the same.
And apart from market experts, people from the field of education and banking also applauded the budget, saying this is in line with the expectations of people and will also create job opportunities.
Our Financial Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman Garu, has given a very good asset to our ladies on behalf of this budget by extending the Mudra loan from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. And also she is giving one more opportunity for our ladies, that it's a great deal by cutting down the registration charges and stamp duties to a lower cost prices.
There were no changes in the old tax regime rate. However, there is a slight change in the new tax regime rate. What is that is, up to 3 lakh rupees there is no tax. Earlier, from 3 lakh to 6 lakh rupees, 5% tax was levied. That has been increased to 3 lakhs to 7 lakhs. Now, from 3 lakhs to 7 lakhs, 5% tax is levied. and from 7 lakhs to 10 lakhs it is 10%, 10 to 12 lakhs it is 15%, from 12 to 15 lakhs it is 20%, above 15 lakhs it is 30%.
Finance Minister has touched upon many very important things. I would like to mention few of them. One, it is a development oriented budget. You have seen the focus on infrastructure related expenses, which is they have kept at 3.4% of GDP will be spent only on capex. They talked about road connectivity, bridges, flood control measures.
India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has welcomed the verdict of Supreme Court on NEET. He said that the government is committed to safeguard the interests of the students of the country and their future is not tampered with.
हम माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय की इस फैसला का स्वागत करते हैं। हमने शुरू से ही कहा है, हमारी प्राथमिकता देश की स्टूडेंट्स है, देश की विद्यार्थी है। उनकी भविष्य के साथ कोई खिलवाड़ ना हो, उनकी हितों को हानि ना हो पाए, ये सरकार की प्राथमिकता रही है।
The Education Minister further reiterated government's commitment in making National Testing Agency or the NTA that conducts the examinations as a zero tamper-free and zero error-free organization, and anyone involved in the process of tampered exams will not be spared.
एक जीरो टेम्पर फ्री, जीरो एरर फ्री ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनाने के लिए हम लोग कमिटेड है। मैं और एक विषय कहना चाहूँगा, ये सारे प्रोसेस में जो अव्यवस्था हुई उसमें से जो लोग इन्वॉल्व है किसी को भी बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। सभी के ऊपर कड़ी से कड़ी कानूनी कार्रवाई की जाएगी।
Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will make back-to-back visits to Laos and Japan this month to attend meetings related to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the Quad. The minister will travel to Vientiane, the capital of Laos, during 25th to 27th of July and participate in foreign ministers' meeting under the ASEAN framework. This includes meetings of ASEAN-India, the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Forum. This year marks a decade of India's Act East policy that was announced at the 9th East Asia Summit back in the year 2014. Dr. S. Jaishankar will also subsequently travel to Japan during the 28th and 30th of July duration to participate in a meeting of Quad foreign ministers in Tokyo on the 29th of July, along with his counterparts from Australia, Japan and the United States. In the first high-level visit by the newly elected Labour government in the United Kingdom, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy arriving in India, and as per the statement issued by the British High Commission, the visit will push for a reset of the UK-India partnership through reinforcing the UK's government to securing a free trade agreement that will benefit both the economies. During his visit to the national capital, Lammy is expected to meet India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and will also head for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Laos. Dr. Jaishankar is also attending the Laos meeting. US Vice President Kamala Harris has reiterated that she is ready to take on Donald Trump in the United States presidential election. The likely Democratic nominee made her campaign debut in Wisconsin after securing backing of key Democrats and record fundraising. Nick Harper sends this report from Washington.
It has been an incredible period for Kamala Harris as she ascends to this position of presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. A real whirlwind 48 hours since Joe Biden announced that he was not seeking re-election. Since then, there's been a number of firsts. On Monday, for the first time, she spoke at the White House as she seeks the presidency. She praised Joe Biden. She spoke about his legacy. And then on Monday night, for the first time, she spoke to campaign staff in Delaware. And on Tuesday, she held her first campaign rally with potential voters. That took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the very same place where the Republicans held their 4-day convention last week, showing, I think, how pivotal Wisconsin as a state will be in this upcoming election.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And now Kamala Harris has won the majority of delegates. They have said that they will support her. It means that she is now the presumptive nominee. It's not official yet. That's likely to take place in the first week of August, when the Democratic Party holds a virtual roll call to officially crown her as the nominee to go up against Donald Trump. Kamala Harris has put out a statement in which she says, "I am proud to have secured the broad support needed to become our party's nominee. I look forward to formally accepting the nomination soon." We've also seen a period of record fundraising. She raised $81 million in a 24-hour period, the most of any presidential candidate in US history. That money has only increased since then, now topping more than $100 million.
And because we are a people-powered campaign, that is how you know we will be a people-first presidency. And Wisconsin, this campaign is also about two different visions for our nation. One, where we are focused on the future. The other, focused on the past. We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead.
So she has managed to unify the party. There's incredible enthusiasm for her. Now she needs to convince undecided voters, in particular in swing states like Wisconsin, that her vision of the future is better than that of Donald Trump's. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he will go ahead and debate Kamala Harris, his new Democratic rival, in the 5th of November presidential election. The former U.S. president told the reporters in a conference call that he was willing to do more than one debate with Kamala Harris. Now, Trump's remarks were his first extensive comments on Harris since Biden announced that he would drop out of the presidential race on Sunday. A U.S. survey shows that Kamala Harris is more popular than Donald Trump. The online survey by Ipsos and Reuters published on Tuesday shows Harris is leading Trump by 2 points nationally, by 44% of the vote to 42%. According to the first national poll carried out since Joe Biden stood down, Harris has a fighting chance of overturning Trump's lead in the swing states ahead of the presidential election scheduled to take place on the 5th of November this year. A previous poll by the same firm previously found that Trump led Joe Biden by 2 points. While nationwide surveys give important signals of American support for political candidates, a handful of competitive states typically tilt the balance in the U.S. Electoral College that ultimately decides who wins a presidential election. Time to take a short break. We'll be right back, but still to come on the other side. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint meeting of Congress in Washington. Pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel demonstrators stage protest. pain swelters as second heat wave of the summer kicks off. An exclusive report from Paris on how the city is gearing up to host the Paris Olympics on Saint-Privé. Welcome back. After that short break, you're watching DD India Live. Now, the head of the US Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, has resigned following a failed mission to protect Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania less than 2 weeks ago. He narrowly missed being assassinated, sustaining an ear injury. One person in the crowd died from the gunfire and 2 others were injured. Now, Cheatle gave testimony to a House Oversight Committee on Monday but wasn't able to save her job, as Caroline Malone reports.
Well, Kimberly Cheatle has now resigned just 10 days after that attempted assassination on Donald Trump at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. He narrowly missed being shot in the head with a bullet grazing his ear, blood flowing from his head, and the Secret Service having to move him quickly off stage. But Cheatle, when she appeared at a hearing on Monday in the Capitol, wasn't really able to answer many of the questions that lawmakers put to her, including why they'd allowed a shooter to be on a rooftop within gun range of the stage where Trump was speaking, why, when they'd identified someone as being suspicious, that Trump was allowed to carry on and go onto stage, and how it was possible that this particular gunman who ended up on a roof carrying out the shooting and narrowly missing Trump was able to carry out the attack, even though members of the crowds and the public had identified this person and informed law enforcement nearby that they could see someone on the roof with a gun. Now, Cheatle may have resigned, but it's certainly not the end of it. There are a number of investigations ongoing into those circumstances and those events. President Biden has directed the Homeland Security Department to do their own probe. There's also a Federal Bureau of investigation into the events of that day. There's also going to be a bipartisan group from the Capitol, from the House, who have decided to look into it independently as well. There'll be 7 Republicans and 6 Democrats on a panel that's been jointly appointed by House Speaker Mike Johnson and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. They've decided it's important enough that they come together in a non-political way to assess what happened on that day, especially when you consider the importance of reducing any kind of violence, particularly political violence, in the United States at a time of great divisions. Just over 3 months now, of course, until a US presidential election. So we'll definitely be hearing more about where this probe ends up going and potentially get some answers about what happened on that fateful day. Caroline Malone in Washington, reporting for DD India.
On to Israel now. Thousands of protesters gathered near the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. when Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed a joint session of the Congress. Now, Netanyahu is facing criticism both at home and abroad for his approach to the war in Gaza and the mounting civilian death toll. DD India correspondent Jagruti Dave is in the US capital and has more on the reception that awaits Netanyahu there.
As security is tightened ahead of Mr. Netanyahu's speech on Wednesday, pro-Palestinian activists are angry about Washington's support for Tel Aviv and its assault on Gaza, which has killed nearly 40,000 civilians in the enclave, according to its Hamas-run health ministry. The Israeli operation was launched after Hamas's October the 7th attack, where around 1,200 people were killed, according to Israel's government. The war has sparked protests across college campuses here in the US, and this week demonstrators will be in Washington with demands for a ceasefire and for the US to stop giving aid to Israel. Relatives of hostages taken by Hamas are also gathering on the National Mall to highlight their plight and call for their release. Mr. Netanyahu's speech to Congress also comes at a tricky time for US-Israeli relations. Mr. Netanyahu has hit back against US President Joe Biden, who's been increasingly critical of Israel's strategy in Gaza and has been putting pressure on his ally to prevent the conflict spilling over into the wider region. It also comes at a challenging time for Washington, with Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and endorsing his vice president instead. Kamala Harris has said she won't preside over the Senate for the Israeli leader's speech, with an aide citing a scheduling conflict, but others have interpreted this as an indication of just how divisive Mr. Netanyahu's visit is for the Democrats, some of whom have indicated they may boycott the speech. Jagruti Dave in Washington reporting for DD India.
In southern Ethiopia, a death toll from 2 landslides has jumped to 229 and could rise further as the search for survivors and casualties continued into the second day. A landslide buried people in Gofa zone in southern Ethiopia, a regional state, following heavy rain on Sunday night. Then a second one engulfed others who had gathered to help on Monday morning. Footage shared by the local administration showed people digging up bodies with shovels and bare hands. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said he was deeply saddened by the terrible loss of life and that federal officials had been deployed to reduce the impact of the disaster. Spain's second heat wave began on Tuesday. Spain's National Weather Agency said the temperature in many parts of the country is expected to surpass even 40 degrees Celsius, pointing at the central and southeastern parts of the country as the hottest areas. The peak of the 3-day episode is expected to take place on Wednesday, where the mercury will rise to 44 degrees Celsius in some parts. Meanwhile, due to extreme heat, at least 5 fires were reported burning in the Spanish community. The authorities reported that 170 firefighters and various types of machinery and vehicles were being used to combat the flames. On to sports now. In women's cricket at the ongoing T20 Asia Cup, Indian women defeated Nepal to continue their winning streak at the international cricket event. Deepti Sharma started with 3 wickets as India defeated Nepal by 82 runs to qualify for the semi-final stage. Arundhati Reddy and Radha Yadav also chipped in with 2 wickets each. Indian openers Shafali Verma at 81 and Dayalan Hemlata at 47 stitched together 122 runs for the first wickets as India posted 178 for a loss of 3 wickets against Nepal. The women in blue will be playing against the runners-up of Group B. Earlier, India's stand-in captain Smriti Mandhana won the toss and elected to bat first against Nepal in their final Group A game at the ongoing 2024 Women's Asia Cup T20 tournament. Paris 2024 Olympics will mark a historic change this time. For the first time, the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games will not take place in a stadium. This time, it will take place along the Seine River. DD India correspondent Narayan Singh reports from Ground Zero. Take a look.
Paris 2024 will break new ground by bringing sporting competition into heart of the city, and same will be true for the opening ceremony, which will take place in the heart of the Paris along the Seine River, which is just behind me. You can watch here, and Eiffel Tower is also there. The parade of athletes, which traditionally takes place within a stadium, will be held on the Seine with the boats for each national delegation equipped with cameras. to allow viewers watching on TV and online to get a close-up view of all the action. Winding their way from east to west, 10,500 athletes will cross the center of Paris, the main home of the game, where they will showcase their sporting prowess over the following 16 days. Throughout the opening ceremony, athletes will appear on stage alongside performers in line, with Paris 2024's goal of hosting a games that is created for and by the athletes. The parade will end its 6-kilometer route in front of Trocadero, where the final element of the ceremony and the celebratory show will take place.
And that's all for this edition of DD India, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika Mehtu, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.